Was it a case, Jeff, I'll start with you, was it a case, Goldie, of the All Blacks being a little bit off their game and Fiji being on their game?
Well, it's either or, right? Which way do we go? I looked at this from the weekend. I was in Dunedin, and this was for me a certain improvement in Fiji's ability against a top quality opposition to compete in a number of different areas. So I think they made significant improvements on their game, which was enough to make them more competitive. So for me, pure and simply, it was about the Fijian side coming to New Zealand on short preparation and performing admirably in a number of areas that they hadn't performed well in the past against top nations. So for me, it's a significant improvement, not necessarily the All Blacks dropping their performance. That is the side of the argument that I'm going to push.
Yeah, look, the All Blacks' performance was off. And you know what? It has been off throughout Ian Foster's tenure as All Blacks coach. And it's quite worrying to see the All Blacks struggle in certain areas of the game, especially the breakdown. I didn't like seeing that, and I'm sure I'm not the only All Blacks fan who thinks that way. For me, it was more of a All Blacks coming down than a Fiji coming up, Jeff.
57-23, it was the Fijians' best performance in a test against the All Blacks by some margin, Goldie. But, you know, people that have watched these players play in Europe and abroad and other competitions would know that they're handy players and they're picked by these big clubs for a reason. And then you throw in the fact that you've got Vern Cotter, Daryl Gibson and Jason Ryan, very good coaches.
Not good enough to coach the All Blacks, though.
Well, you put all that together, don't you? And it's not really surprising, is it, that they push the All Blacks in certain parts of their game?
Well, the fact that over the last 3 years, there's some significant parts of the game that have improved. And a lot of that has been their set piece. Their set piece is operating at 90% over the last 3 seasons. So to me, the step up that they needed to make, and their nickname was the Flying Fijians, right? That's what we expected. That's what the All Blacks prepared for. What we saw on the weekend was what we saw is them come to compete in areas we hadn't seen them compete before. Their line-out was very competitive, was strong. Their scrum was very solid, particularly with their starting tight five. And when you look at their work at the breakdown, their loose forwards, given their experience playing overseas, had developed. Now, I just want to put this on the table. Look, you talk about athletes around the world, countries that can produce athletes with the necessary size, explosiveness, ability to compete physically with the All Blacks. Fiji has long been one of those sides. They just haven't known, I believe, technically how to do it. South Africa, we know. England, we know. Australia struggles consistently to compete on a physical nature. What we saw is we've seen the development of these players overseas and at the next level to come and challenge the All Blacks in areas they haven't been able to challenge before, which took the All Blacks by surprise and didn't enable them to impose their will into later of the game. Let's remember, though, this is the All Blacks we're talking about. They win 77% of their test matches. They're actually the most consistent rugby team that has ever played the game. So it's always the opposition that raises their game, brings their A game, that every so often finds a way to win. Whether it was Argentina last year, whether it was England in a Rugby World Cup. They raise their game, they raise their... When it comes down to it, it is not nonsense. Why is this nonsense? When it comes down to it, you're the target.
You are the man with the Fiji, Jeff, that have played one test match since the 2019 Rugby World Cup. That's right. Then all of a sudden, with the world suffering through COVID, Vern Cotter and his excellent coaching staff, as Jeff pointed out, trying to get them all over the world to New Zealand in quarantine. 2 training sessions together, no semi-raj-rajra. They lose both their halfbacks in a first 5. They're stuck in Australia because the Trans-Tasman bubble closes. And you're telling me that Fiji is now going to try and match it with the All Blacks,
what they've created is
who haven't had to go outside of their catchment area, which is New Zealand. They've been playing Super Rugby Aotearoa.
What was the score again?
Mate, don't tell me about the score because the score blows out in the last 15 minutes. We're talking about Fiji, who are ranked outside the top 10 in World Rugby.
Ranked 11th.
Outside
the top 10. Way to stretch it in there.
I'll let you guys start. I'll better get out of here.
You can't dress it up any other way as... Yes, Fiji were really good, but I'm sick and tired of hearing like, oh, Fiji find a way to be competitive with the All Blacks. Argentina found a way to be competitive with the All Blacks. Argentina hadn't played in donkey's years, and then they put that performance out. Like, at what point do you say, well, the All Blacks, through Super Rugby, Aotearoa and Trans-Tasman, are well versed in the dark arts of rugby, should be good enough to blow Fiji off the park, and they weren't.
So you talk about the nature of the game, the global contest right now. What dominates the game? the breakdown and defence. If you watch Fiji on the weekend, through good coaching, physical conditioning, the fact they're experienced
Don't we have good coaching?
Absolutely, we do. But the nature of the game is it's easier nowadays in the current climate that we play in to shut the opposition down.
What are you expecting to see in the second test then?
What am I expecting to see?
Yeah.
Improvements from both sides. As you've just said, Fiji will be in a situation where they've had more time together. Unfortunately, they're going to miss a couple of guys who are in Australia who can't make it to New Zealand. We would expect to see a different All Black side come out together, a different selection. But what I look at is the fact that what the All Blacks prepared for was not what they got last weekend. Did they adapt during the course of the game? Like good All Black sides do, they do. And then they brought on numbers 16 to 23, which we've done for years, which has always been our competitive advantage, is our depth. Our ability to play the full 80 minutes. And all of a sudden you're saying the score blows out. Yeah. The weekend before, we criticised an All Black side that won 102 points to nothing.
I wasn't criticising them.
Oh, well,
they did what they had to do.
Well, yeah, but they were better than that.
A couple of weeks ago we had Mills Molina in the studio and I said, look, they're going to put 90 points on them.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah, and they did it really well. But did they get the credit they deserved for going out there and executing? You know how hard it is to put 102 points on the team?
For me, they did.
To put 102 points on the team, it's incredibly difficult. Then to go back and go and play down to
wasn't a great Tongan side.
But
I reckon you and all your Sky Sport rugby cronies could put together a pretty good team that would have put maybe 40 or 50 points on that Tongan side.
I totally disagree.
Mate, you're still in pretty good nick.
You can't win this argument with flattery. I can tell you that.
McTainsh up front. You'd be wearing one or three.
I'd be tight head. Yeah, for sure.
I look at this, and there is no doubt that the All Blacks will look at that performance and go, there are a number of areas, and Ian Foster's admitted there's a number of areas they were disappointed at and frustrated by. But why were they frustrated by it? Because the opposition had come and challenged them. Sometimes I think we get carried away.
Yeah, but why don't they challenge the Fijians?
Hold on. We did. We challenged them enough to score 57 points.
Minutes?
For 57 points.
For 65 minutes. Hold on. You saw it, you watched it,
So how many boxers do you see get knocked out in the last 3 to 4 rounds?
I don't really watch boxing.
Well, hold on. So what do you do for the first 8?
There's going to be a boxing fight here.
No, I love to.
Hold on. A 12-round fight, the first 8. All of a sudden, there's a feeling out. There's a point where you're working the opposition down. You're wearing them down.
But it's Fiji. Yeah, it's not South Africa or England or Ireland. It's Fiji.
And this is the way a lot of these Test matches have gone. Argentina have been very similar
for the bloody main event.
No, this is the way it's been with Argentina and a number of the Rugby Championship games where it takes time against good teams with experience and some sort of depth. Now, what they have done, Fiji, they introduced the team, got themselves into the NRC in Australia, right? Okay. I know you think to yourself, oh, that's rugby in Australia. That's not a great example. What it did was it gave them an opportunity.
How did we go against Australia?
What's that?
How did we go against Australia?
No, but that's I'm just saying.
Did you watch Super Rugby Trans-Tasman?
Yeah, I did watch that. It was outstanding. That's why we're better off playing Fiji.
I'm pretty sure they didn't even have like a team in the final from memory.
That's why Australia got to be careful they don't get what they asked for having a conference, because the Fijian Drua might be the team that comes out on top. That's why Australia got to be very, very concerned about that. But what we're going to now have in Fiji, we're going to have one team operating in Super Rugby and then another group of players in the Northern Hemisphere. They're going to have some depth that they currently don't possess. Their reserves on the weekend found it very tough against our next tier. Our next tier is what sets us apart, our ability to develop talent. Yes, was it a performance they'd look at and go, you know what, I think we wouldn't be overly happy and satisfied with it. In the end, though, 57 to 23. Yeah, and that's all you can look at and go, you know what?
So you were happy with that performance overall?
Overall. Yeah. Absolutely, because we did what we needed to do.
The vast majority of the performance was wayward, like the kicking was ordinary, offloads not going to
Elements of the game. Kicking wasn't as accurate as it needed to be. There'll be different selections in regards to that. We shouldn't forget, though, how many penalties did Fiji concede in the course of this game to allow the All Blacks? And so you think about, oh, we got no continuity. Okay, we didn't get our game going. We lost the contest at the breakdown. They infringed as many times in the breakdown as they won turnovers. So you're sitting here going, where was the flow in our game? They didn't allow any flow because, bottom line, they attacked an area. They refused to allow us to do the things we're good at. That's why it doesn't, on the surface, look like a strong performance, because we didn't get to see the things we're used to seeing. We didn't get to see the things 7 days earlier against Tonga. Our backs with ball in hand, space and time. We had to accumulate it through line-out drives in the last 15 to 20 minutes, which, well, you look at it and go, OK, hold on, why are we having to do this? Well, bottom line is, they were very good in a couple of areas. They were fit, they're strong, and they're fast. That's what they can do to you. Yes, will the All Blacks be disappointed? Absolutely. But I'm on the other side of it. I celebrate the arrival, I believe, of Fiji if they can get some sort of continuity in their selections and test match environment. I don't know how they get the support out of Europe in regards to releasing of players, but you talk about these players who weren't here, that weren't available. You think how much better they could be if you add another 3 or 4 quality players in the environment.
That's why if I was Ian Foster, I'd be slightly embarrassed by this performance at the weekend. Yeah, you keep on pointing out that it was 57-23 and on the scoreboard everything looks rosy and wonderful, but it's an understrength Fiji side that they really did compete with the All Blacks for more than an hour. And that's unacceptable, isn't it?
Well, that's not acceptable. I think it's a joy. I think it's a joy. It's a joy if you're in Dunedin. I'll tell you what.
We keep on raving on about how
contest?
good the Super Rugby teams are, right? 5 teams, they're so strong. Every match is almost like test match intensity. Only playing 8 matches in Super Rugby Aotearoa, it's almost too many. You know, we need to give these guys a break. Then
I don't say that. I don't say give them a break.
Implied.
But not from us. Not from us. No, not at all.
Of course it has.
We want them to play. We expect them to play. Here's the challenge for the All Blacks right now, is they've got to decide on their number 1 team, and they've got to get out and play some rugby. Look, I don't adhere to that.
As we're saying, the Super Rugby teams are strong, so therefore the All Blacks should always be so much stronger than a Fijian side.
Is Super Rugby test match footy?
We're told that by players and pundits and commentators.
And we don't tell you that. We know
every match is like test match intensity. I've heard it countless times.
No,
all throughout Super Rugby coverage.
2 test matches, they say that, but they know it's not the same. They know it's not the same. Test matches are test matches.
Oh, so we're being fed a lie.
Well, you're not chasing bonus points in test matches. You don't play that type of style of football in test matches. There's no way that you can look at this contest on the weekend and go, was this a Super Rugby game or a test match? It was a test match. It was played with...
What I'm trying to say, Jeff, is like if you concentrate the talent, the playing pool down into an All Blacks team, it should always be invariably better than whatever Fiji can cobble together.
It was 57 points to 23 better.
I've made
That's
my
what
decision.
it was.
I've heard enough, and I'd have to say on this occasion, I'm sorry, Goran, but I will have to side with Goldie on this one.
Rugby guys sticking together.
No, well, you want to hear my reasoning for it, and it's because I think the game has moved on a lot at international level since the All Blacks last played Fiji in 2011. Okay, and the 10 years since then, you've got guys playing professionally in Europe, all around the world. And you bring them back here. Sure, they didn't have the ideal preparation for this test match, but that's testament to what they did. They came in, they had good coaches in Vern Cotter, Jason Ryan and Daryl Gibson, who, as Jeff said, Fiji's brand has been to play entertaining, enterprising, free-flowing rugby, the Flying Fijians. They're always going to have that. Tonga, Samoa, the Pacific Islands are always going to have that flair. But what they introduced this time was, OK, you're big guys, you play professionally around the world, you know what to do, you know how to win the collision, you know how to hit the rucks, you know how to try and compete at line-out time. They did that, and they unsettled the All Blacks. And the result was, in the end, 23 points to Fiji, their best result in the test against the ABs. But to your point, the All Blacks, they did enough to come back and win the test. And so I think you have to give credit to Fiji and the way that they were put together for that test.
I'm giving credit to Fiji, no doubt about it. What they did, they came and they almost conquered the All Blacks for more than an hour. But, you know, the things that you're talking about, that is what the All Blacks should be well versed in as well. And their preparation far exceeded the Fijians' preparation. You know, 2 training sessions together before they go out there and play like that. Whereas Ian Foster...
But fundamentally the game, and this is where I talk about set piece, the scrum's a scrum. Line-outs, the line-outs are line-out. The ruck's a ruck. Defensive systems are very universal now. So the things that you're talking about in terms of combinations and playing in systems and that, you can kick the ball away, give it to the opposition, defend and attack the breakdown. That's all they did. And that's why the score ended up 57-23. It was relatively, it took its toll at the end of the game, the back end of it. I'm not saying that the All Blacks by any point were satisfied, but the reason, one, it didn't appear as though they played well, is because the opposition negated what the All Blacks are notorious for and what they can do. And all of this talent we talk about, and to your point, we do talk about this talent. And we talk about our players, and because we see superstars out there, the Will Jordans, the Geordie Barretts, doing remarkable things, when you don't see it, you start questioning whether or not the collective is actually performing. And that's what people, I think, are looking at this last performance and going, why weren't we able to match them physically? I actually think we did match them physically, right? We just didn't, we just didn't dominate them, right? And I don't think in this current climate, when you've got athletes that are so close to each other, and the Fijian athlete and you talk to the coaches, they said, these guys are remarkable, absolutely remarkable. The pace, the power, we couldn't get around the outside of them. There was no space. We thought we had gas. All of a sudden, they're across, they're making tackles, they're hitting breakdowns. I just think it was a change that we hadn't anticipated, and now, bottom line, we've got to adjust to that. And this next 7 days that they've had, or the next coming up to this weekend, fascinating, because I don't think you're going to be going out there and dominate physically. That's not the way Fiji will allow the All Blacks to beat them.
Well, I just worry about future encounters with the Rugby Championship coming up, and the Bledisloe as well. You know, when you think about it, Australia and South Africa and Argentina are going to present a stronger unit than
I ask you
Fiji
this.
is.
I ask you this though. That performance from Fiji. That performance from Fiji on the weekend. How do you think that would have matched up against Australia? How do you think that would have matched up against France?
Well, you tell me.
I think it would have matched up fantastically. I think physically, if they brought that up, I think, and JK said it on our show this week, they're a top 8 team in the world. They've already qualified for the next Rugby World Cup. You think about their next 2 years, how exciting that could be. We had high hopes for them at the last Rugby World Cup, and they fell over, and they fell to Uruguay of all teams. And that was a huge surprise, but they're incredibly competitive in their other matches.
And you look at Argentina, who you mentioned before, Goldie, over the years, the way that they developed in that time playing the All Blacks. We always talked about the Argentina side that would come out for the first 20, 25, 30 minutes of that first half, and there'd be the passion, there'd be some physicality, but kind of like Fiji, just couldn't stay with it for the back half of the game. But the more they played the Rugby Championship, we saw the result.
I need to see, as an All Black supporter, I need to see more from them in the second test for a longer period of time.
Well, so more of what though?
Well, more of the last 15.
Yeah, but the last 15 happens on what happened as a result of what happens in the first 60. I think we can't get a...
What, so they've just got to sit back for an hour and take a hiding from the...
Well, they didn't take a hiding. We were still ahead. Fiji? We were still ahead.
Mate, they were bashed.
No, we weren't bashed. I mean, that's a perception.
They lost the collision.
There was no doubt that the breakdown, it was well and truly a war. And you look at that and you go, well, hold on. I come back to this. They conceded a lot of penalties, Fiji did. A lot at the breakdown. They were pushing the boundaries. And that's one of the areas that, I suppose, concerns the All Blacks the most, right? Is the fact that we weren't able to eliminate that completely. That was an issue. But I don't think in the current climate and all of these big games we're talking about, that's where the game can be won and lost. And that's not collectively. That's, you get a few individuals, you get guys who challenge those physical parts of the game. That's why England, South Africa at the moment, they're the sides that have had great success on the back of defence. It's the nature of the game right now. We've got to maybe do things a little bit differently to get that dominance. I don't think dominance up front is going to be easy to get for a long time.